Hi, welcome back to Eyeball Aeronautics. Today I want to show you how to make this hot wire cutting bow. And to do so, you're going to use a jig that I'm going to show you how to make also. I'm actually going to show you two jigs. One which you can make with nothing but a hand drill in case you don't own a table saw. And the other one is a little bit more involved, and it will require a table saw and a drill press. Either one of them will do the same job, just the one from the table saw is a little bit more accurate. So I thought I'd start with a video materials list here. So first off, we have the two 1x4s, which I will make the drill jig that is made just using just a hand drill without any other tools. And then above that, I have three pieces of oak that I'm going to laminate together to make the drill jig that I'm going to make with the table saw. And then next to those, I'm showing three fiberglass rods. One is 3/8 of an inch, the other two are 5/16. They're available at like Lowe's, Menards, Home Depot, places like that. Below that is also available in those places is a 1.25 inch wooden dowel rod. Next we have some 23 thousandths MIG welding wire. These are 632 brass screws. You want to use 1-inch long screws. These are only 1/2 inch, which aren't really long enough. Finally, a couple of eyelets I use to cap off the wire. Alright, well I'm going to try and speed things up a little, try to keep it from running so long. But what I'm trying to do here is show how to glue up both fixtures. So I'm going to do two of them, like I said before. One of them is going to be made out of oak, and so I'm going to start by laminating those. Then I'll set those aside, and I'll work on these pine ones. Okay, so I'm going to start with the oak. I'm just going to put a little glue on them, clamp them together, set them aside. 2, 3, 4 hours later, I'll come back to them and I'll cut the V on the table saw. So 2 clamps and set them and forget them. Now on the pine, I can't cut with a V on the table saw, so what I'm going to do is glue them together at a 90-degree angle, and that will make my 45-degree V, which basically what we're making is a V block. So rather than clamping them, I'm just going to put 3 screws in. That'll take place of the clamp, and it'll also hold them so that I can work on them immediately. And that's it. So now we'll start with the fiberglass rod. What I'm going to do with the fiberglass rod is cut them 11 inches long. That puts 10 inches of flexible arm and 1 inch inside the wood. So simply just take a hacksaw, cut yourself 2 lengths 11 inches long, and that will give you your tension arms. Lastly, just round off the edges with some sandpaper and they're ready to be drilled. Alright, so what I'm trying to do here is come up with a way to drill the hole in the V block right on center, 90 degrees to one axis, and at an angle that's just kind of pleasing to the eyes for the tension rod on the other axis. So what I'm going to try to do here is tape it to this speed square and then tape it to the bench, so it's all just kind of anchored so that I can use my eye to get the hole drilled exactly how I want it. I'm trying to be as accurate as I can here. So now that I got it to where it'll stay put while I drill it, I'm just going to put the drill on center of the V block, kind of rock it back and forth just so that it spots itself. And as you can see, I'm just starting the drill a little bit. I'm not going to actually drill through at this point. Now that I feel confident that it's on center of the V block, I'm going to use the square to help me eyeball it in line with the the V. I'm drilling 90 degree to the V, and it's also kicked back at an angle so that when I drill the dowel rod, it'll tilt the tension rods away from each other. And so once that hole is drilled, the V block is basically finished. So I take a look at it here, and it looks like I hit it right on center. I'm pretty pleased with how that one came out. So now I can just take my dowel rod and slap it in there, clamp it in place, and use that as a drill guide, and I can drill each end exactly the same on center and at the same angle. You can also make multiple bows this way, and they will all come out basically the same. As I said before, you just clamp the dowel rod to the V block, flip it up on end, and if you look closely, you'll see that I've marked the drill with a piece of masking tape. That's just so I know where to stop so that I don't drill all the way through the dowel rod. Just line it up, drill it in, and do the same thing on both ends, keeping in mind that you got to try to keep them in line. And then that's it. 2 tension rods pressed in, and you have your bow. You just need to wire it up. Alright, so next I want to show making the V block on the table saw. So what I'm going to do here is square up all 4 sides of the oak. I want this one to be very accurate, so what I'm doing is just using the tools to square it up as best I can. Once I've ascertained that it's as square as I can possibly get it, then I'm going to set the blade to a 45-degree angle, and I'm going to attempt to set the height so that the depth of the V is an inch and a quarter deep over the inch and a quarter dowel rod, so that when I set it on the table, see it's rocking there because it's not deep enough, I'm going to try and sneak up on it so that when I press down on the V block, it's against the table, but it's also holding tight against the dowel rod. That'll make it a lot easier to make multiples because I don't have to clamp anything, I don't have to do anything but slide it in the V. So next I'm just going to use this angle finder, and I'm trying to just determine the angle that I want the tension rods to be. And there's no specific angle, I'm just kind of eyeballing it here, just trying to figure out what is an angle that is pleasing to my eye, I guess. And then just once I get an idea of what angle I like, I'll lock that down, and then I'll use the angle finder to set the drill press. And that looks about like it right there. So what I'm doing now is I'm setting the angle. The angle finder is just too long to actually use it directly against the drill bit. So what I'm doing is I just grabbed a scrap block of wood, and I'm using that as a spacer to help me set the angle of the table. And it doesn't have to be precise here. This is just a random angle that I'm using, just that looks good on the bow. And so once the angle's set, all I have to do is tighten up the table. So my plan is to drill a 5/16 and a 3/8 inch hole for the 2 different size tension rods. And to do that, I want to keep them both exactly on center. So I'm going to just clamp on a piece of wood to act as a fence, and I'll line it up so that it's exactly on center of my V block. And then I'll just punch a 3/8 hole and a 5/16 hole right on center, and also at the same angle. I apologize for the really poor angle there, but that corner of my garage is pretty cramped where the drill press is, so I didn't really have an opportunity to get a good angle where you could see. So here's the finished V block. It's got a 5/16 and a 3/8 inch hole drilled on center at that angle. that'll guide my drill through the dowel rod to make my hot wire cutting bow. So the last thing to do is just to polish it up a little bit with some sandpaper, and it's ready to drill some holes. Now, I mentioned about marking the depth earlier, and this is how I do it. I just mark the drill with a Sharpie against the dowel rod. Then I'll measure up 1 inch, make another mark, and then I'll wrap the drill with some tape. And that will give me my depth so that I know when to stop, so that it'll drill 1 inch deep into the dowel rod and leave a 1/4 of an inch so that the tension rod doesn't stick out the other side. You also want to be careful that you get the drill all the way down against the dowel rod before you start drilling, or you'll probably cut into your V-block. The step is to drill a couple of holes in the end of the tension rods and insert the screws that will hold the hot wire. Now you're going to press in the tension rods, keeping in mind that those little holes you drilled need to be 90 degrees to the axis of the dowel rod. That's so that when you attach the cutting wire, the wire isn't wrapped around or crooked on the dowel rod. This will make the hot wire itself. So what you want to do is cut a length of wire about the length of the bow, and we're going to attach some eyelets onto the wire by simply sliding the wire into the eyelet and then twisting it around the top of the eye so that it can't pull out. Now, when I do this, I don't solder them in or anything else. I just put a couple of twists at the top of the eye so that the wire is wrapped around the eyelet. So once you have that end made, slip it over the screw on one end of the bow and use the bow itself to just help you measure the wire. You want the wire about 2 to 2.5 inches shorter than the distance between the screws on the bow. So then just twist the wire over like that so that way you can know where to fix the second eye. Slip the eye on and then twist that wire around the eye like you did on the first eyelet. Now just press down on the bow to compress the tension arms. Slide the screw through the hole, and the bow is strung and it's holding nice tension on the wire, and the bow is ready to be wired. To wire up the bow, we're going to crimp on some eyelets on the end of each wire. We will put some strategically placed tie wraps to secure the wire to the bow. Then we'll trim the wire to length. We'll solder on a T60 plug, add some heat shrink tubing, and that will finish the bow. And that's it for this project. Thanks for watching Eyeball Aeronautics.